Hey everyone! Today we're going to sew the Celeste East-West handbag from Oro Rosa Patterns. It's super cute. I did the shoulder length straps. It's got a lovely strap detail. It's got a recessed zipper inside. The lining is just fabulous. There's card slots on one side and a slip zipper combo on the other side. There's also a super cute side detail with these little envelope sides. Absolutely love them. This is such a fast pattern. I made this in like a day's time, no problem. Who's ready to sew with me? I'll start off as I usually do and make all my markings and put my double-sided tape down. And then I'll grab my handles and remove the double-sided tape. And I'll fold my raw edges to the center. I'm gonna leave a little tiny gap. So what I do is I just fold it up to the bottom of my marking line, and then I'll fold it to the top of my marking line. My gap is like really minuscule, like really minuscule. Trying to get it to focus here. Not much of a gap at all. And then we'll just go ahead and repeat. Afterwards, you'll fold your straps and handles in half to encase that raw edge, and you can clip down to secure if you want. Then we'll top stitch on both sides, and I'll actually do the short side as well. I'm using Mora faux leather here, and I'm going to use a 5.5 stitch length with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to use my zipper foot as a guide. So then we'll go ahead and I'm going to pull my threads to the back, and I'm going to tie them off and burn them instead of back stitching. I could back stitch here anyways, since the strap detail will be done in a similar fashion. We're just going to fold our raw edges in only one time. I am going to skip a tag and purse feet this time, mostly because I don't have them. Then we're going to put our bottom right sides together with one of our main panels, and we're going to sew down that edge at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then we'll repeat for the other main panel. Make sure you put it on the bottom side if you have directional fabric. I've got waterproof canvas and Mora faux leather, so I'll be using about a 3.5 to 4 stitch length to sew this together. Gonna repeat on the other one. Okay, go ahead and trim just the bottom seam allowance on both sides. Okay, we'll go ahead and run a strip of double-sided tape along the main raw edge that's left at the bottom on both sides. Then remove your double-sided tape backing and press your bottom away from your main, making sure your main panel points down, and adhere that tape to the back so your bottom looks like that. We'll top stitch the bottom on both sides, going back to that 5.5 stitch length and an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Go ahead and put a strip of double-sided tape along the drawn line. You want it to be just above your drawn line on your main panels on the back. And then you'll also want to trim the seam allowance here in the corners of your bottom and your exterior. You'll probably have to pull up some of your double-sided tape, especially if you put it on the edge. Don't clip your seam. Don't cut your stitches. And then repeat for the other two corners. Then you're gonna fold this wrong sides together and match up your bottom seams. Wrong sides together. You're gonna match up those bottom seams. And I'm gonna put a clip just above it and on it. I'll go ahead and do that for both sides. And then we'll baste this together just on this bottom portion. I'm gonna start right in that seam with my basting. And then flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Now we're gonna turn this right side out around that piece we basted down. So we'll fold back our main panels pretty much onto themselves. I'm gonna clip this one side. Okay, and then we'll stitch that side down and repeat on the other side. So we'll use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance here. We'll sew up the side and then we'll reinforce down here a couple more times. I would suggest before reinforcing your stitches to check inside to make sure you've got your sides matched up where you want them. Okay, then you're supposed to trim your seam allowance except for the top 3/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to cut into my seam allowance right at that 3/8 of an inch mark and then trim the seam down. Go ahead and turn this right side out. Poke out your corners so they're kind of like this. And then you can do the next step and the double-sided tape off and fold it under, but I'm going to wait to do that until the lining is ready and do it all at the same time so my tape doesn't end up popping. Go ahead and warm up your iron. Draw your lines on your card slots. Fold your first line wrong sides together and then fold it right sides together on your second line. And take the raw edge furthest from you and fold it down and press the top. We can top stitch the two folds we made. I'm going to use a 5 on this cottony canvas stuff. After you've drawn your lines on your card slots, go ahead and open that little backing up and top stitch down just the first fold. I'm going to top stitch going up and then with my needle down, pivot and sew back down. Be careful at this beginning because you're only sewing through one layer of fabric, so it might try to bunch up a little bit. Then we're going to repeat on the other one. Now fold that back extra down and we'll sew that bottom raw edge. And then we'll turn this right side out after trimming the bottom seam allowance. Then go ahead and line up your card slots with your main card backing and we'll top stitch that on. Now go ahead and take those side panels and put them right sides together with your card slot backing, and we'll stitch down at 3/8 of an inch on each side. Repeat on the other side. Go ahead and trim the lining seam allowance, only the lining side panel seam allowance. Press those side panels away from your card slots, and then we'll top stitch. Take your lining zipper pocket and your zipper with the 7 1/4 inch side. Center your zipper and baste it on. Grab your zip backing and lay it right sides together. The bottom edge with the top part of your zipper here. And we'll sew that on at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now we'll open that up, press it away from the zipper, and then we're going to actually wrap that around that zipper tape. So you have about a 3/8 of an inch fold over right here. We'll clip that down and we'll top stitch the folded edge and that zipper tape edge. Go ahead and separate the other side of your zipper. Lay it on the opposite raw edge. We're going to baste that on at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. We'll grab our front pocket piece and put that right sides together with that raw edge of the zipper. And we'll go sew that on at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Go ahead and press that front pocket piece and that lining piece away from the zipper. We're going to top stitch through both layers. Okay, then go ahead and bring your zipper teeth up and match each other and put your pole on. Install it twice. So here it's on one time. I'm going to pull it right off and put it back on the other side. Okay, then you can go ahead and open up the front and the back, and we're going to sew just the lining part right here. We'll sew down each side at 3/8 of an inch and don't go past the zipper tape. Go ahead and trim down that seam allowance. What I like to do for this part is take one of your side panels and lay it flat and straight, and then just fold this top piece under, hold it to the top edge and to the bottom, and then press flat. I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll baste this down. Now that both sides are basted, I'm going to go ahead and put double-sided tape down both sides, just because I have that zipper here and my fabric always tends to shift when I go over the zipper. So I'll peel off the double-sided tape and lay my lining side panel right sides together with our zipper pocket, and then we'll sew it at 3/8 of an inch, and we'll do the same thing for the other side. Go ahead and trim the lining side panel seam allowance, and if you use double-sided tape like I did, mine stayed behind, so I can press this out and it's gonna stick down pretty good already, which is awesome. And then we'll go top stitch this. You don't have to put the double-sided tape when you fold over if you don't want. Trim the bulk of all the four corners on both lining pieces. After putting your double-sided tape on, take the backing off and wrap it around your stabilizer. I'm going to do this slightly different than she has you do in the pattern. I've gone ahead and ran a strip of double-sided tape the full length of the zipper panels, just on one side of each one. The centers are also marked on the same sides as the double-sided tape. So for now, we're going to put this off to the side and grab our zipper tape. I'm going to do this in one piece instead of separating the full zipper, just so I can make sure that I get this even. I'm going to take the top edge and fold it wrong sides together and pinch it at a 90-degree angle. And then we'll baste that together. And then we'll repeat that for the other side. This is why I like to keep it together though, so I can make sure this matches up. And then we can baste this side. So this is what we have now. We can go ahead and remove one side of the double-sided tape backing. Match up one side of your zipper tape with the mark you made. I'm going to put it right before the mark I made. And I'm going to stick it down to the double-sided tape. And then I'm going to fold over my panel. And again, stick it to the zipper tape. You have this sandwich. And then we'll stitch down at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do not sew past your zipper panel. Before turning your zipper panel right side out, I want to trim down some bulk. So I'm going to peel my double-sided tape layers. I'm going to snip into the front of the zipper area and then trim all the way down. I'm still going to trim one more corner, and that'll be this one over here. And then we can turn that right side out. So you can top stitch now if you'd like, or you can continue on and repeat with the other zipper panel and then top stitch both at the same time. I'll be using a 5.5 stitch length and an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to top stitch around my zipper panels. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made marks and labeled the top on my top panels. I've made center markings on my zipper panels and center markings on my lining panels. I am going to start with my zipper panel and my lining that has the zipper on it. I'm going to put my panel face up, going in the same direction my zipper below is going, and I'm going to clip it together. We're going to go ahead and baste this on. Then you'll take that top trim right sides together and sandwich that zipper panel. Go ahead and sew with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to use a 4 stitch length. I went ahead and trimmed the lining seam allowance. We will now push top panel and our lining together. Away from the zipper. And then we'll top stitch across the bottom on the lining panel. I'm going to use a 5 stitch length. And we'll repeat the whole process on the other side. Go ahead and trim the corners of both of those seams on both sides. Then line up the bottom of your panels and we'll sew those. We'll press those seams open and top stitch. I'll use a 5 for this part and hold the seam open from underneath. Flip your lining right sides together and measure up from one of your notches on the side and make your mark on both sides. Then we're going to clip down the edges and sew. So we'll go ahead and start stitching. I'm at the 3/8 of an inch mark I made, and I'm going to back stitch well. Flip it over and do the other side. So now we're going to box these corners by matching up our centers and sewing this in 2 parts. I'm just going to go ahead and do the other side while I'm at it. You notice I'm starting in the corners where the corner meets each other and then coming up to the seam we drew, or the seam we sewed. We'll go to the machine. Okay, so I've got my bag with the top more towards me, and I'm going to sew in a straight line 3/8 of an inch from the mark from the corner of the bottom of the bag up to the mark we made earlier. We're going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm using a 3.5 stitch length. Starting right where we left off, we will sew down the other side at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'll repeat for the other side. Okay, I trimmed my lining and I put some double-sided tape down on my line. We're going to remove this double-sided tape. We're going to do this for the exterior too if you haven't already done this. And fold your raw top edges down to meet that line you drew earlier. When you get to these sides, open up your seam to get this to lay, nice and smooth. Decide which side of the exterior you want to be your front, and then grab your lining. Drop your lining in, depending on how you want your zipper to go. I want mine to be opening from the left, so I'm going to put it on the left side. Match up my side seams. And I'm actually going to clip just to the left and to the right. I'm going to do that on both sides, and then I'm going to continue clipping around. Okay, we're going to top stitch this now. I'm going to use a 5.5 stitch length and an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to go slow, and I'm using a flatbed, so this is going to be really slow. I'll just check out the lining in this thing. It's so nice, so crisp. All right, we're almost finished. Woohoo! Okay, I measured and marked my holes. Now I'm going to do my holes and my handles. Go ahead and install your strap ends if you have them. Okay, so I marked the center of my strap detail, and then I'm gonna mark 2 1/4 to the left and the right of the center mark. And then we'll measure 10 inches from each of those rivet marks. So you should have 5 marks, and we're going to erase the center mark. Going to the back side of your bag, so this one for me. We're going to lay our strap detail on the back of our bag, matching up our markings. If they don't match, we should redraw them after they're centered to match. Mine are just a little bit off. You see where my holes are? So I'll just hold this up here. And those 2 big markings I just made are what I'm gonna punch. Okay, you should have punched holes in your strap detail. Grab one of your handles, fold it so where it's not twisted. I'm going to put the post side of my rivets through the handle, then through my strap detail, and then through the back of my bag. Then we'll put the other side on, and you can set your rivets. Take your strap detail and run it around the sides of the bag to the front. Match up your hole and make your mark. Then we'll do the same thing. And then you can set both of those rivets. For this last part here, I'm going to use a gate ring, and we're going to slide it on and flip it over. I'm just eyeballing this until I get it right. And I can make a mark on both sides of my hardware, and then I'll punch those, and then I'll set my rivets. All right, let's install our zipper pull. I'm going to do this by clipping my zipper panel together where I want it and matching up my zipper ends. The round side on the left, and then the right. Make sure that's where you want it. I'm going to melt my zipper ends, then fold one side to the zipper teeth, and then once more. Same thing on the other side, the raw edge of the zipper tape in and folded once more. So it's double folded on each side. Then I'll take my zipper end and slide that on. I like to check that this is spreading out evenly before putting my screw on. And then install that screw. I'll tug on my zipper to make sure it's caught. And that is it. You are all finished with your Celeste. Great job, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.